Welcome everyone to the Redesigning School Counseling webinar on goals. This webinar is designed for schools that are renewing either their Indiana Gold Star School Counseling Award or their Ask a Ramp Award. And in this presentation, because you've already have goals that you wrote years ago, what we're doing in this presentation is talking about updating the goals that you already have. So basically, here's what we'll be doing today. We'll go over, as we always do, a brief review of the RSC beliefs and process. And then this month involves a pre-meeting mailing that you're going to send to your advisory council so that they can look at data before they come to your meeting. So we'll walk through that pre-meeting mailing and kind of see how that all works. And then we'll do the meeting walkthrough, and then finally look at submissions and rubric items, and then go to the online system. So first of all, the review. Just again, the RSC beliefs. Our main belief is that school counseling programs help students make sound choices in areas that impact academic success. And this is our impact pyramid. And just a different way of stating that when students participate in sound guidance and counseling programs, they make different choices, they make better choices, and as a result of those choices, we see student achievement go up. Today especially, we're going to talk about the student choices, because all of your program goals will be centered on students making better choices in targeted areas. So when we say student choices, we're really talking about the goals that you're about to set. When we design your program, then we just work it backwards. Today we're going to talk about your school's achievement goals. And then we'll ask the question, okay, what choices do kids need to make in order for our school to reach our achievement goals? And then in future meetings, we'll talk about then what guidance and counseling activities do we need to put in place to help kids make those choices. Okay, in terms of the process, we did a lot with getting ready at the beginning of the year. You updated your steering team, you collected data again last spring, did self-studies, reconvened your advisory council, and we just heard a few minutes ago from Eastern High School that they had some new members on their advisory council, so that was great. And then we're going to kind of skip over to vision that we did in August. We did a little bit of the intro in there as well, but in August we asked your advisory council to look at your vision statement that you wrote before and to tweak it. And again, in previous discussions held before we started recording, we heard from schools that talked about how they strive to make their vision more concise as they revised it. So that's great. Okay, then in September, today, what we're looking at is the program goals. And again, we're going to look at first your school's academic achievement goals. And then we're going to look at, okay, what choices does your school counseling program need to target as its goals? And again, our thinking is that when kids are making those better choices, then your school will be more likely to meet your academic goals. Okay, then at our next meeting in October, we'll talk about narrowing down those program goals to just a few that we're really going to focus on in the coming year. Those are called your priority goals. But before we get to the priority goals, we're going to look at expanding our resources, especially the resource of time, because we know that the more time that school counselors have, the more, the greater number of priority goals that they will be able to tackle in their program. And sometimes the resource we're looking at is also funding. There are some program goals that can become priority goals if we have the funding to put behind them. So we'll expand resources, and then we'll narrow down our program goals to be just 2 or 3 that we're really going to hit hard in the coming year. Once we have those priority goals in place, then in November, we'll start looking at why aren't kids making those choices already? what is getting in the way of, or what would be a blocker to our ability to reach our priority goals. So in this section, which is the root cause step, we'll look at 3 possible areas that could be getting in the way. It might be that kids don't have the knowledge that they need to make that choice, and we'll learn that through the guidance data. It might be that there are personal or social issues that are interfering with kids' ability to make sound choices, and we'll learn about that from the counseling data. Or it may be that we just haven't given kids the opportunity to make the choice. So we'll look at that in some of the opportunity data from the counselor survey. Okay, then once we know what's getting in the way, then in December we'll look at your activities, and we'll just kind of ask, are the activities that we're currently doing, are those the right ones? Or do we need to make some adjustment in our activities to address our root causes? And in that section, of course, we're looking at 4 different kinds of activities: our guidance activities, counseling, advocacy, and management. And then in second semester, we'll look at doing a lot of preparation to get ready for the coming year. We'll write guidance lessons or update the ones that you have already. We'll create a new program calendar for the coming year. We'll look at individual calendars, and then we'll determine if you need a budget, which of course you will to some degree, and then we'll either create the budget, or if there's no money available, we'll send a letter and a request to some organization to request funding to support your program. Okay, so that is the process. Let me see if there's any questions. Not seeing any hands up, so good. Let's go on then. Okay, so today we're talking about how to have a discussion with your advisory council about updating your program goals. And to begin with, there is a pre-meeting memo. I'll show you that in a second, but here's basically an outline of that memo. What we're going to include in this mailing, or this email, if you send them as email attachments, are your student achievement goals from your school's school improvement plan. So you need to find that school improvement plan and look through it, find the academic achievement goals. And I want to really emphasize the word academic there. We are not looking for goals like attendance goals or homework completion goals or college visit goals. Those are actually student choice goals. Your school improvement plan probably contains some student choice goals. If there's a goal, for example, that kids would enroll in AP courses, that would be a choice, of course. And so it is possible, and likely actually, that your school improvement plan will include student choice goals. But what we want to tease out in this section are just the academic goals. Those would be academic performance goals like pass ISTEP or pass an Algebra 1 and a course assessment, or read at grade level, or earn a 3 or better on an AP exam. It's specifically academic. Could also be related to report cards, earn all A's and B's on the report cards. So it's specifically academic goals, and you may have to dig in your school improvement plan to find those. I often hear from schools that the school improvement plan is really focused on student choices, and the academic goals are all buried. So you may have to dig to find those, but please, please, please make sure that they are academic goals. Because really that's what schools are about, is increasing academic achievement. So that's where we want to focus part of your discussion with your advisory council. Okay, so then we're putting those 2 things in the either as email attachments or in a mailing. And then we're going to look at the body of the letter, which is about the pre-meeting task. So in the memo, the advisory council is provided with a link that they can click to access your school's student achievement data. And the instructions say, when you look at that data, there's 2 things we'd like you to do. the first thing is to put a check mark in front of any choice that you think all the kids in our school would make. So it may be things like, kids choose to turn in their homework. Well, yeah, that's something we want all students to do. So they would check that one. And then the second part of this task is to put a star in front of any of the choices that are concerning because too few students are making that choice. So in the students turn in their homework choice, they might put a check in front of it because they think all kids should do that, but then also put an asterisk in front of it because when they look at the data, there's a problem in that area. Kids are not turning in their homework. So we're looking at things that all kids should do, and then we're also looking for the problem areas that the data shows that kids in our school are not doing that. So that's the first part of the memo. And then the second part of the memo is asking your advisory council before they get to your meeting to dig into some of the drill down reports to identify student groups that are making choices at a lower rate than their peers. And so we're not going to specifically tell your advisory council which drill down reports to go to, but my guess is that if you have Hispanic members on your advisory council, they're going to want to dig into the race ethnicity drill down report. If you have parents of free and reduced lunch students, they're going to want to dig down into that disaggregated report. So my guess is that all of the disaggregated reports will be looked at. It'll just be folks that, they'll be looking at things that interest them. Okay, so that's the memo. And again, this is a pre-meeting assignment. It's like a homework assignment, but before the meeting. And it will save you a ton of time. One alternative that you could do, that we've seen schools do that actually works very well, but it's time consuming, is to, instead of having one meeting this month, have 2 meetings. And then if you wanted to do that, you could actually do these activities at the first meeting all together, and then at the second meeting do the PowerPoint that we're about to go through. So that's just an option. Some groups kind of like to do that together instead of having it be a pre-meeting activity. Okay, so let's walk through the meeting then. So first of all, the agenda looks like this. There's welcome and introductions, about 5 minutes. Then there's the review, which is about 20 minutes. And sometimes I think when schools are starting to wanting to save time, they'll maybe leave out their review. They'll think, oh gosh, by now they should know all that stuff. But I think it's really important each month to set that month's discussion within the process. It just kind of puts everything in perspective. Okay, so then after the review, you'll direct people to look at the school's achievement goals and just kind of discuss those, walk through those, point out what's in there. It might be another kind of twist on this might be to invite your principal to come to the meeting to talk about the academic achievement goals. So that there's some, he's seeing or she's seeing how this is all, your whole school counseling program is going to be focused on those goals. And again, if you invite the principal, please make sure that he or she is talking just about the academic achievement goals and not about student choice goals at this point. Okay, so then you're taking a break. And then you're coming back and you're talking about the school counseling program goals. We'll look at guidance gaps and identify any guidance gaps that exist. And then we'll spend just a few minutes kind of looking ahead again to put this discussion into the sequence, into the process that you're working through this year. Okay, so that's the agenda. I'm not seeing any hands up. Okay. So let's look at this month's submissions, and then I'll walk through the PowerPoint and go online. So the submissions this month are your school's achievement goals. You're actually going to upload those, and all we're checking, all that gets checked is that they're present. So just make sure they're academic goals. I think about the only mistake you could make here is to upload student choice goals instead of uploading academic goals. Okay, then in the program goals, here's the rubric. So program goals are present. Program goals reflect desired student choices in areas that impact student achievement. So you're defining what choices you want kids to make. And then we need at least one program goal to target a specific student group. So that would look like this. Instead of saying that all students would turn in their homework, if you have dug into the data, the drill down data, and you've discovered that really it's the boys that are not turning in their homework, then a specific targeted goal would be to target boys turning in homework. And you'll be able, when you enter the goal, you'll be able to say, okay, this isn't a goal for everyone, this is a goal for our boys. This is really important that you hit this rubric item, because later we're going to ask you to develop activities that would close an academic achievement gap. And so we really want you to identify here which student group your goal is focused on. And again, this is something our organization has done for 20 years, but ASCA, when they came out with their RAMP criteria, they specified this, and then Indiana picked it up as well. So then the other thing is that if you are an Indiana school, each of the Indiana student standards for guidance needs to be reflected in a goal. And if you did this when we were doing everything by paper and pencil, this was really cumbersome to make sure that all of the Indiana Student Standards for Guidance got into your program as goals. We've made it very easy with the online system. All you have to do is push a button and it drops in automatically all of the Indiana standards, so as written as goals. So I think you'll enjoy that. So that's the rubric item. Advisory council minutes are the same as always. The minutes contain the names of those present and the groups that they represent. There's a summary of activities and discussions, and also your minutes contain specific reference to people that contribute ideas by name. And again, we found that that's really important to engage people and keep them coming back to your advisory council meetings. Okay. Not seeing any hands up. Okay, so now let's come out of here and let's look at the presentation then. Okay. So this is the presentation that you'll be doing with your advisory council. There we go. Okay, so the first thing you're doing is introductions and then the review, and same thing that we just did, so you're reviewing the foundational beliefs. And here I kind of talked about this earlier, but we dropped in a slide in the presentation to kind of remind you to really focus on that as you're talking about program goals today, that all of your goals are written around helping students make better choices. So we really want to make sure that your advisory council understands that goals are the same thing as student choices. It's to improve specific student choices. Okay, and then going through the process, and then up to today. So in terms for this slide is designed just to remind your advisory council that in terms of program goals, today you're going to be talking about two different kinds of goals. One are achievement goals, and those are goals that everybody in your school has. They're part of your school improvement plan. And I would distribute a list of your achievement goals to your advisory council members. I think it's going to be really helpful for them to eyeball those achievement goals, and especially later when they start talking about the program goals or the student choice goals, having that list of achievement goals I think will help them understand, again, that there are two different kinds of goals. And then you're defining for the first time for them what program goals are. You know, they are the choices that all students should make ideally in order for your school to reach those academic goals that they have in front of them. Okay, and then on this slide we're explaining and teaching people how to write a goal. That's specific and concrete. This is kind of, you may have heard folks talk about SMART goals. This is like how to come up with a SMART goal. So a well-written goal has 4 things in it. It says, 1, who's going to improve, who the student group is. 2, it includes a benchmark, what they're going to do. It includes the baseline data and then the target data. And then, I guess there's really 5 things, and then when, the timeline, when this is going to happen by, which in RSC is always by the end of next school year. So, for example, the first goal here is that all students, there's a students group, all students will report bullying when observed. Baseline data is 65%. The target data is 85%, and then the timeline is the end of next school year. And then down at the bottom here are a couple of targeted goals to close gaps. So all 8th graders are going to create a high school course plan. Right now there's 0, and then we're jumping up to 100% because that's something that at the end of 8th grade, you know, we want every student to be able to do. And this one, actually, this is not a gap goal because we're talking about all 8th graders. The next one is a gap goal. In this case, we've looked at the data and we've discovered that girls ask for extra help all the time, but boys never do. So we want to introduce a goal that boys will ask for extra help in class. We're at 52%. We want to increase that to 70%. As I'm talking about that, you may be thinking, man, how would we target the boys? What would we do with them? At this point, that doesn't matter. We're going to figure out what to do down the road in a couple of steps. All we need to do right now is just set the goal. So even if you can't think of any conceivable way that you could impact that goal, go ahead and list it as a goal. And then later when we get into brainstorming mode about how to fix these things, you know, the creativity will take off and you'll come up with ways. Okay, so then we're asking the Advisory Council to look at the school's achievement goals. This is a slide that you could take out if you want to or keep in. This just kind of follows the same template as the previous slide, but in here you would just, you know, write the goals from your school improvement plan. So all students will pass the Algebra 1 and course assessment, current data, target data. So you've got kind of all that data in there. Also, we've also given you in your manual a Word doc where if you wanted to have a handout to folks, you could, you know, do it this way, put in your student group benchmark, current data, and follow-up data. Or you may just have a page in your school improvement plan that you can just use. So, so either way. Okay. So that's the achievement data. Then we're looking at the school counseling program goals. And again, reminding people that these are student choice goals. And the key questions are, what choices should all students make, because those choices will enable students to reach our school's academic goals, to succeed at the next educational level, and ultimately to succeed in post-secondary ed and succeed in the global economy. So the first thing we want them to do is, your advisory council to do, is to review the student choice report that they brought with them. So that was part of the pre-meeting mailing. They've checked off things, goals that they think should be part of your program, and starred the ones that are concerning. So now we're just asking them, okay, dig that report out and please look it over and note the choices that you checked. Then we're going to give them at the meeting a copy of your current goals. And we're going to say, okay, based on the study that you did before you came here, are these any of these choices that you think should be edited? You don't like the way that they're worded. And so they might look through and tell you to, suggest that you reword some of them. And then the next slide, we're saying, are there any student choices that should be added to our goals? So they're not on the report, but they're things that as they went through all the data they found and think that they should be added. And then finally, are there any student choices that should be omitted? We used to think that this was important for kids to do, and now we don't think it is. So which ones do we have that should be omitted? So, and that's kind of basically it. It's a lot different than the first time you did this because we're starting out with a list. So now we just need to look at new updated data from the survey that you gave last spring and then just say, does the list still make sense? Are there things we need to reword? Are there things we need to add? Are there things we need to take out? Okay. Then we have provided for you an Instagraph if you want to use it. Oops, let me find that real quickly and show you that. There we go. So that Instagraph looks like this, and it has all of the Indiana student standards on it written as goals. It also has is also aligned with the ASCA ramp goals. So you could just go through here and check, yes, this is a current goal. And then if you did feel like you needed to vote or have some sense of consensus on which goals to keep or not keep, notice that we're asking them here to check the choices that students do not need to make. So it's a little different. This is a negatively written Instagraph, so a little different than what you've done in the past. Okay, so that's that. And then one more section in the PowerPoint. Then we also want to address and discuss with your advisory council, did they notice any guidance gaps? Are there student groups that are not making sound choices at the same rate as their peers are? So this is kind of a brainstorm. Are there some groups of students making sound choices at a rate that is less than their peers? And then what data led you to think so? So they're kind of looking through their notes again. And then we also provided an Instagraph on this one, and it looks like this. So it just has all the different student groups, males, females, all the different ethnic groups and races, the free and reduced lunch, special ed, parental college involvement, and then report card grades. So, and then the instructions are for them to just indicate where they think there are student groups that are not making sound choices. Okay, so again, my gut on this is these two Instagraphs you probably will not need, but if you feel like you need to reach a consensus building tool, you've got them ready to go, and then you can just draw them in. Okay, and then that's that Instagraph. And then the final slides are the looking ahead slides. So you're saying after today that your steering team is going to create the program goals based on what the advisory council talked about. And then at the next meeting, we're going to expand resources and identify our priority goals, or the small number, maybe even just one goal that we really want to hit hard next year and make an impact on. Then after that, we're going to figure out what's causing the students to not make those choices. Those are the root causes. And then at the last meeting, we'll talk about the activities. What are we going to do about those things that are getting in the way? So, and then that's it. So, okay, let's then, I also wanted to show you, let's see, the memo. Okay, so here's the memo. And again, this will come to you as a Word document, so you can edit it. We made it a memo. You might want to make it a letter. You know, whatever you want to do. So then there's a little bit of an introduction. Then we're talking about academic goals. Please review the enclosed chart listing our academic goals. If you're doing some kind of other handout, you know, edit chart to whatever report or whatever you're giving them. Then we're asking them to look at your the program goals. And so we're asking folks to go to this web address, www.asainstitute.org/rsc/public-data. And they'll go to that web address, and then they'll select the most recent year, select your state and your school name, and then click on the icon for Summary Report in the Plans and Choices column. And then we're asking them to print the report and then put a check on the choices they believe that all students should make and star the ones that are concerning to them because kids aren't making the choices. So, and I'll show you in a minute how they do that. Okay, then part B is to ask them to look at the drill down data. So they get in the same way, except this time they're going to click the icon for the drill down report, and we've shown them here, you know, who they can get drill down data for, and then make a note of student groups who are making sound choices at a rate that is less than their peers, and record the data to back up their beliefs. And then your information, if they need to, you know, if they get stuck trying to find the data or whatever, that they can call. I've been very, very, very pleased that we hear from a lot of schools, probably the vast majority, that people actually do this homework assignment before they come to the meeting, which is, you know, I think great. So, and again, the data is kind of compelling, so that's kind of neat. So let me go in and let's then pretend for a second that we are one of your advisory council members. I'm going to put in that web address, and that'll take me to a public data page that looks like this. So this only includes public data, and just as a reminder, when your students took the Learn More survey, there were some questions that are not public. The questions about their counseling needs, that data is never public, and the questions about how they feel about their school counselors, that data is not public. So you're not going to find that on this page. So what they do is they select the current year, so 2014. They select their state, Indiana, and then the school from this drop-down list. And I'm going to go ahead, I think we'll pick on Eastern today. Again, public data. And then we ask them to click on the summary report for the student survey and plans and choices. So I'll click on that report. And it takes a while to build this report because there is so much data in here. But you can see that, you know, this report uploaded pretty quickly, and it tells you how many students in each of these, do you plan to go to college? It was answered by students in grades 9, 10, 11, and 12, and 80% of the kids said yes, and 10% said no. And just a reminder that school counselors using the student list generator in your private parts of all of this, you can find out who these 42 kids are, and you could do specific emails to them or specific meetings with them to help them think about post-secondary if you want to. And then the other thing I always think is interesting is the not sure data. So in addition to the 42 who said no, we have 43 that said not sure. And for me personally, these are the kids I'd be going after. The kids who definitely say no, they must have done some research and they have a decision. But the not sure kids, in my opinion, are floundering, and those are kids that I'd want to go after. Another thing that just as you're looking at this data, things that might pop out at you, my immediate question would be, are these 43 kids 9th graders or 12th graders? If they're 12th graders, I'd be very, very concerned. If they're 9th graders, I can pick them up in the spring when I'm doing my scheduling appointments again or whenever. And I just want to remind you that there is a drill down report so that you can look at each grade level by itself. And then as your advisory council members are looking at this, I think your Hispanic members are going to wonder, oh, I wonder how many Hispanic kids are in here. Or your 21st Century Scholars folks are going to wonder how many 21st Century Scholars kids are in there. So just a reminder, you've got those drill down reports, so you can do that. So okay, so let's go back and then let's look at one of those drill down reports. So I can drill down by grade level, by gender, by race, ethnicity, lunch program status, 21st Century Scholar, IEP or special ed status, parental college status, and typical grades. That may be of interest too. If I've, I might want to see the kids who say they're not going to college. Are there kids that are getting good grades in that group? And if so, I might want to go after those individual students to find out if there's something else that's getting in the way that I could help with. Okay, so I'm going to let's click on the drill down report because now I'm just curious about this. So that pulls up. Do you plan to go to college? The not sures. Yep, perfect. So there are only 6 12th graders that weren't sure. And again, if I were school counselor, I'd be going after them immediately because we want, folks to be in 12th grade, especially to be pretty concrete about what they're planning to do next year so that they take all the steps this year they need to take to get there. But you can see, there are only 10 9th graders weren't sure, 16 10th graders. So again, the cool thing about the system is that using the private side of this, you can find out who those kids are. And then as they're coming in for their, once a year scheduling appointments or whatever, you can talk to them specifically about their post-secondary plans. Okay, so that's the letter, or that's the report, and then your advisory council members would just print this, and then they would check out the things that they think a choice all kids should be making, and then they'd star the ones that are concerning to them. Okay, so I'm going to come back real quickly, see if I have any questions, and I'm not seeing, oops. See if I have any hands up. I have one hand up. Okay, let me go to, okay, I guess I answered the question. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and answer this question because I'm sure other people had it too. The question was, when you're doing the baseline data on your goal statements, where does that baseline data come from? And yes, it comes from these state reports, the survey reports. So in this case, the baseline data, if my goal were for to increase the percentage of 12th graders that plan to go to college, then my baseline data would be the 7%. So, and then if it's all students, which probably most of your goals are going to be for all students, you need to go back to the summary report and get the data for all kids. Okay. Okay, don't see any other questions. Let's look then at the online system, and I think we'll start out with Eastern. We'll just continue with Eastern. I guess before I go on, let me just ask Kate or Christine, can you just give me a yes, send me a message that it's okay to use your school? I meant to ask you that before we started. Can I demonstrate with your school? Christine says yes. Okay, here we go. Okay, so again, I think you're going to be, if you haven't renewed for 3 years, which would be where most of you are, I think you're going to be really pleased with the tools in the online system that will make this a lot less time consuming. So just a reminder, when you log in, you're always starting out with the process tab. So I'm going to go here, and then also, let me scroll down a little bit. Also, because in the oops, went too far. Because in the Uses tab, I said I was a renewal school, you can see that the renewal list of activities has popped up. So, and Eastern's done a very nice job of checking off their steps, so they kind of know where they are, and it's nice for me too because I kind of know where they are. And we can see that they have put in their vision statement, still need to get in their minutes, but that's great. So they're ready now for goals. So they're watching this webcast right now, so after the webcast is over, they would just check, or they're participating in the live, actually, the webinar, they would just check that they participated and then save checks. Okay, so the first thing is going to be to send the pre-meeting memo and achievement goals. The 2 Word documents that I showed you, you can download right here, and then upload the achievement goals. This is the uploader button. You can see it's got the arrow pointing up. When I click on that, it gives me a screen that looks like this. I can click Choose File. That will allow me to pick the file in my computer that I want to upload, and then just hit the upload button. Okay, and then, so I'm uploading my achievement goals. Then I'm conducting Advisory Council Meeting 2, and this will take you right to the manual. And I'm going to scroll down to the goals update. And I want to point out a couple things in here. We've given you a cover page, a sample agenda, the diagram of the whole process, the presentation that we just walked through. But we also gave you a link to your vision statement so that you can just go there. This is what you entered and print it, and we were suggesting that you pass this out at your meeting. And then we've also given you a link that goes directly to your program goals. Then so you can print that and give it to them. So that just kind of makes life a little easier, I think. In the tools, don't forget you've got to prep for meeting 2, the facilitator notes, pre-meeting memo, that's where you get that memo, achievement goals, and then here are the instagraphs and then tasks after the meeting. Okay. Then, oops, here we go. Then, let's look at entering those program goals. So normally what happens is that when you click on an enter button, you just get text boxes or things to click, but there's a couple of steps in entering these goals, and which is going to save you a lot of time. But this enter page looks a little different than what you're used to. So we've given you the steps here, so you can see conduct advisory council meeting, then add suggested program goals as your next step. So so you can see I've got more than one enter icon. So this is the one we want you to do first, add suggested program goals. So I'm going to click enter, and this gives you all of the Indiana Student Standards for Guidance and all of the ASCA RAMP standards in the ASCA National Standards written in goal format. So the first one is that plan to go to college, and all you need to do is say, yes, I want that to be one of my goals, and it is going to be for all grades, and it is going to be for all groups. But it didn't have to be that. Let's say that you were looking at this, and when you started looking at your drill down data, everybody was planning to go to college except for the 9th graders. And so I could click select grades, and now it's just a goal that you hold for your 9th graders. And maybe it's not all of your 9th graders. As you continued to dig down into the data, it was just the females that were not planning to go to college in 9th grade. So you can really fine-tune your goals, make them very specific by selecting a grade level and then also a student group. Right now this goal reads that your goal is to increase the percentage of 9th graders, 9th grade females who plan to go to college. Okay, one other really nifty thing about using these suggested goals is that if you use these goals, the suggested goals, the way they're worded here, these also correlate with the survey data. And what our system will do is automatically take that survey data out of the survey and put it with your goal as your baseline data. And then a year from now, when you give the survey again, it'll automatically take the data out of the survey and put it into your goal as your follow-up data. So it helps you, when you use these suggested goals, it helps you not have to write the goal, but then it also helps you with the data part of all this because it just drops the data right in there. So, okay, I'm going to make this back to all grades. And also another feature we've added is if you start to read through these and you think, man, these are all good for my school, or if you're an Indiana school and you're working towards the Gold Star Award and you have to have all these goals in, you can just select them all by doing that. Then you would need to go through and change the grade level if you needed to in the student group. But for most of these goals, you know, as you scroll down in them, I think you'll see that they're probably appropriate for all grades. So, oops, and then I'd want to change this one back, all groups. Okay, so I'm not going to save that because this is a real school, but that's how you get the suggested goals in. Okay, and I can't tell you how much time that would save you. And the reports that you get out later with that data automatically dropping in, it is so cool. You'll have several years of historical data, and then you'll just be able to drop in new target data. And every time we turn the system over, the current year becomes the most recent historical year, and then the target box becomes blank so you can put in your new targets. Okay, so that is, I think, pretty awesome, if I do say so myself. Okay. Then we also have given you a tool then, in addition to the suggested program goals, do you want to have your own goals? So I need to click the Enter button, and you just get this little thing that comes up. You would say, you know, all students to participate in Panther Pride, but if I use that, I would define it. This is a college fair, so you'd write that in there. And then which grade levels? This is not for all kids. It's only for my 11th graders, and then all students, and then save the goal. So you can enter your goals in there. Just a couple things you might not have thought of in terms of like a goal for group counseling. A goal might be that all students will reach a specific will make a specific student choice. So in other words, in your group counseling, as you're working with the students, you're helping the students, each one of them, to identify, okay, what's the issue you're bringing to the table, and what is the choice that you would like to start making that would help you resolve that issue. And so you might have 10 kids in a group, every one of them has a different choice, but you can do data around the percentage of those 10 who actually started making that choice, their own individual choice. So, okay. A couple other reasons you might want this. So remember we had a goal that had that you wanted all students to plan to go to college. Well, that probably is a goal that you want all kids to plan to go to post-secondary. And when we say college, we're talking all different kinds of colleges, a 2-year, 4-year apprenticeship program, skill building in the military, all of that. But so you might have a goal that is for all students to plan to do post-secondary, but you've also noticed that you have a gap. So in addition to having that goal for all kids, you may want to do an additional goal, plan to go to college or post-secondary, and this time it's for all grade levels. But you know, your Hispanic folks have said, you know, we really want you to focus on the Hispanic population as you're talking to kids, and we want to see, can we close that guidance gap? Can we bring the Hispanic percentage closer to all students? So that may be another way that you want to use this. So it could be for a totally different question. It could be to hone in on one student group. Okay, and then just click Save. Okay, so the program goals report prints out here. We've made a note to you that after you look at that report, if there's any goals you want to edit, we're going to edit them down here. And you know, one thing I forgot to say on adding program goals that you create, if on those other goals that we give you, the suggested goals, you may find a goal that you actually like, but you just don't like the way we've worded it. If so, don't select it, and then you can create your own goal and word it the way you want to. The only thing is that if you change the wording, then that makes the data not align with the new wording. So anytime you change the wording, you're going to lose the auto-population of the survey data. Okay. Okay, so then to edit goals, you would go down here and you can just know how to write a resume. Ninth graders, I'm going to click Edit, and then I can change anything I want to about that goal. Or if it's a goal you don't want to have anymore because you've already reached it or something else is more important, you can just delete the goal. When you add a suggested goal, it's going to indicate out here that this was a suggested goal. We do that because we just want to remind you that if you take this goal out, you're taking a goal out that aligns with the Gold Star Award or the Ask a Ramp Award. Okay, now because this whole system is new to your schools and we've not used it before, we need to do a little bit of a cleanup. The next time, 3 years from now, when you do this again, we won't need to do cleanup at all. This is just because this is new to you. You'll notice here that the goals that are listed for Eastern, none of them are suggested goals. So the only thing that we have imported from your old system are the things that you typed in. So what I would suggest is, just to save your advisory council some time, I would go back and add all of the suggested program goals or the ones that you're going to want to do next year ahead of time so that your advisory council doesn't have to talk about adding all of these, I don't even know how many there are for the high school, all of these 75 different choices in. So I would, because otherwise you'd have 75 things that were missing. So I would just add them all in before you print out the list for the advisory council, and then you can just tell the council that the things that they came up with 3 years ago are in there, as well as all the Indiana student standards for guidance are in there as goals. So again, it will be very easy to do, but we just need you to go in and do this to connect everything into this new online system. Okay, and that's it. So then you're entering your meeting minutes, and then you're good to go. Okay, that is it. Let's see what questions folks have. Oops. Okay. Getting from Lafayette Jeff, no questions. Anybody else have questions? Okay, we will archive this presentation then, and it will be up, our hope is by the end of the day tomorrow. So if you do want to come back and look at this again and kind of review, that will be up there. Feel free to call if you have questions. And as always, thank you, thank you, thank you. I know you guys are, as school counselors, incredibly busy, and the fact that you are designing a data-driven vision-based school counseling program is really, I think, commendable. I think your kids and your community are very lucky to have you. So on behalf of them, thank you. And I always like to sign off with, don't forget that you are doing great work on behalf of your kids. Thanks.